Hey, this is Andrew with A Million Top Bike. Just doing the warm-up for the Snaggy Ridge 105, my first gravel race. I have no idea what to expect. Just trying to get a feel for the roads and what tire pressure I should use. I was going to roll a little bit higher than I normally would do, but given what I'm seeing here in the warm-up section, it's mostly dirt and like a light to small to medium-sized gravel. So I'm probably going to go back to what I normally run. I don't think the higher pressure is going to be right for that. Anyway, we'll have to see how it goes. Hopefully I can get some video, but I think pace is probably going to be high. I need to focus on safety and doing well in that order. This was a somewhat painful race report to write because I didn't do as well as I'd hoped to. Some of that was naivete, but the bigger problem was a weird physiological issue that I've never experienced before. Of course, it's not all bad. Both are catalysts for change, assuming that I actually learned something from the experience and can avoid making the same mistakes again in the future. Before getting into the report, just want to give a quick shout out to the organizer, Dan Roberts, and all the volunteers who made the Snaggy Ridge 105 awesome. They were great communication from them, great organization. It was just very well done. So thank you. If anyone has any interest in doing this ride, I would highly recommend it. There are a couple caveats that probably just need to be aware of. While it's technically a race, there's no reason why you can't ride it fondo style if you wanted to. Just be aware that you will need to self-support on food. There are stops for water and at least one stop for the bathroom. But given the entry fee, I don't think that that's unreasonable. I certainly had no problem carrying all the food that I needed for the ride. If you've seen any of my other previous event reports, you know that kind of struggled to make it to the start on time. Fortunately, that wasn't an issue this go around. We made it with time to spare, and we got to watch the pre-race talk from the third row. The race started out a lot slower than I expected to after our nice lead out from the local police department. Based on what I've read in forums about gravel races, I was expecting something that was more like a Zwift race, which is just crazy intense from the beginning. It didn't stay laid back though. The pace ramped up after about a mile. Miles 1 through 10 were pretty intense. It wasn't unmanageable, and I thought that things were going well, but of course that was incredibly naive. Given what I knew from stalking last year's lead group on Strava, I expect it to be an effort of tactical attrition. My plan was to ride like I would in a group ride where I was trying to hurt my friends. So I wasn't afraid to put shifts in at the front. I thought that we would thin the group by outriding them, by just out-endurancing them slowly. So it wouldn't be a problem to work hard for the group, recover, and do it again. So naive. Some of my eagerness to work was because I was frustrated with my inability to effectively fight for position in the group when a rider would come up next to me, force their way in, and push me back. Riding out to the front was an easy remedy for that, and so I did it quite a few times. But after taking a long pull just shy of the 10-mile mark, as I worked my way back through the group, the guy who would eventually take second attacked. I can only imagine that his plan was to wait for some idiot to soften up the group, and fortunately for me, I had volunteered to be that idiot. Even if I wasn't just coming off a shift at the front, there was nothing I could have done. It was annoying that I'd already lost the front wheels, and I knew there was no way I would see them again. But it wouldn't have mattered because only the guy who won the race could match that other guy's pace, and they ended up riding together for 95 miles with nobody else. A second group formed just behind them, but I followed the wrong wheel through the next turn and missed the chance to get in with them. Without support, I wasn't able to bridge and ended up just chasing for the next 10 miles until I caught up with my friend who had made the second group but wasn't able to stick with them for the long term. So ultimately,
a massively naive mistake made a top 5 finish impossible. But it was a bizarre physical breakdown that cost me any chance for a top 10. Now I say top 10 because my friend ended up getting 11th place, and if I had been in a position to work with him, I think we probably could have made at least 9 and 10 or something close to that. So I don't cramp ever. Well, hardly ever. The only time in recent memory took 115 miles of horrible hilly in crippling August humidity and 90-degree temperatures. I don't remember it ever happening before that. It was the worst time to have an off day, and I got it in spades because I started cramping just after mile 21. I can only guess that I somehow started the day dehydrated or electrolyte deficient, but it's really hard to know for sure. I certainly didn't feel off at the start. It wasn't until my legs locked up as I got out of the saddle on one of the 1,000 small climbs we did that day that I knew something was horribly wrong. I managed to ignore it for the next 20 miles, but then it became obvious that if I didn't dial it down, it would probably mean a DNF. The odd thing is that I didn't feel tired or sore or whatever. It's just that whenever I put any real power through the pedals, my legs would lock up. It was truly bizarre. I tried to drink my way out of the problem, and I know that in another context that would sound really strange, and it kind of maybe worked. Just took until about mile 80 for that strategy to pay off, or maybe not. Maybe whatever the root cause was just tamped down enough that I could get moving again. I don't know. The cramps never really went away totally, but the last 25 miles were way easier than the 40 before them, which was nice and strange. Even stranger is that despite the Snaggy Ridge 105 being the hardest ride I've ever done mentally, from a physical perspective, it felt like any other 100-mile gravel ride. I didn't feel anywhere close to as broken as I did after the horrible hilly on Sunday. And I was pretty much back to business on Tuesday with a high-tempo structured training ride. As frustrating and disappointing as that was, and it still frustrates me immensely, it wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. It was, as my first real race, I was expecting to learn a lot. So while it cost me the finish I was hoping for, I still managed to get 17th out of 38 and a great lesson in mental toughness. There were many times throughout the race when I contemplated quitting. None more so than when I passed the turn where the 65 mile split off from the 105. Because if I completed the 65, it would not have been a DNF. I'm glad I didn't quit. And I'm glad I didn't turn off to do the 65 mile route. Clearly, I survived. And I learned that I can make it even when things aren't going to plan, even when my legs aren't working right. And when they did start working again, there was a reward, albeit small, for pushing through and just making it happen. I really hope that this is one of those times when failure nets better future success. I really hope so, because I learned a lot of stuff. I learned that not all gravel is created equal. Now, of course, I knew this conceptually, but I'd never ridden anything like this before. The gravel to start was misleadingly small, compact, well-traveled. Much of the course was covered in heavy chunks of rock, so it was like riding on uneven and slippery marbles. There was no opportunity to get off the pedals, which meant that you never really got a rest. And the corners were really sketchy at speed. And I didn't train for that. And I expect that it was a massive advantage for the locals who knew what to expect and had that kind of surface in their backyard to train with. So it's definitely something I need to account for next time and for other races as well. Without knowing exactly why I had cramping issues, the best I can do is ensure that I get plenty of water and electrolytes in the pre-race period, including the day before. It could have been a one-off day. It could never happen again, but I want to make sure that I do everything I can to make sure it never happens again. The last thing, and I think this is maybe the most important thing, is that I should leave tactics to people who know what they're doing, to the leaders. Focus on survival and let the other also-rans put in the work until the group shatters. Looking at the result sheet, this race eventually became a solo effort for everyone but the top two guys. I'm just going to have to learn how to only put the work in when it matters and save the shift work for the fondos. This wasn't the race report that I wanted to do. This wasn't the result that I wanted to have or that I expected to have. But the process of doing the race and breaking it down, figuring out where I messed up and what I can do to make it better in next time is critical. It's super important. And hopefully, by sharing this experience, even though it wasn't the experience that I wanted to have, it is useful to y'all. So if you think so, go ahead and like the video. If you don't, that's fine. Don't like the video. Let me know your thoughts, your comments. I am so new to this. I don't know what I'm doing, clearly. So any comments or assistance or guidance on how I can make this, how I can do better next time would be awesome. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers.